Good evening, Broncos country, and welcome to another edition of Bourbon Broncos No BS. As we are early into the offseason here, there is still a lot to talk about. My name is 𝗕𝗿𝗲. I got Jared with me here, and Jared, you are looking very handsome tonight, good sir.
Oh, I appreciate that. You are also looking, and I think everyone can appreciate that as well. But yeah, man, glad to be here on a Tuesday night off season. Obviously, got a little bit to talk about, and I'm excited to keep talking Broncos even in the off season.
Yeah, man. So let's get the big, elephant in the room out of the way first. Super Bowl is this weekend. So before we dive into some of the coaching changes that the Broncos have gone through over the last couple of weeks, and they're not a lot, but they could be something that, something to watch or maybe be concerned about. And we'll definitely break that down. Yep. But look, we got the Chiefs and we got the Eagles, and I don't want to root for the Eagles, but I feel like I have to, man.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of do. Kansas City fans are already unbearable. And imagine if they got 3 Super Bowls in a row. They've been talking about the three-peat since like the day after they won last year. They were talking about, we're going for the three-peat. And I was like, no one's going to believe this. And then here we are. But I will say I'm rooting for the Eagles for multiple reasons. You know who the last person to have 1,000-yard rushing and win the Super Bowl and also holds the most rushing yards in a season? Terrell Davis.
Yeah. Wow. It's been that long.
Yeah. So big piece of history there. And you're talking, I think he's Saquon's only 60 yards away from TD's record now. If the season ended right now and they won the Super Bowl, he still wouldn't beat it because at the time there was one less game, right? When Terrell Davis, but there's one less game in the regular season. So Terrell Davis still wins. So there's going to be an asterisk, but I do want him to get those 60 yards, get a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And the one thing I really like, and I appreciate as much as I'm a quarterback guy and a wide receiver guy, and I want to see the big plays, is it proves to the NFL that you can have a solid running game as your foundation and win a Super Bowl. We've gotten away from that in the last few years. And, you talk about, everybody's always talking about the Patrick Mahomes and the Josh Allens and the Joe Burrows and all these big time quarterbacks who can make these big time plays and everything runs through the air. And you're going to need that obviously as it gets late in the game, but I want to see Saquon go for, 250 yards and 4 touchdowns again, and just bring it to the Chiefs and show that a running game is really what is still powerful in this NFL.
Exactly. It's going to be really something to watch because I think if the Eagles can really establish that run game, I mean, it's going to keep Mahomes off the field. It's the whole playbook you need, the whole game plan you need to be able to beat the Chiefs. Keep Mahomes off the field, take time off the clock, and run up the score, right? Tire out the defense and just control the clock as much as you possibly can. And if you keep clean on the penalties, then I just don't see why this is a game that the Eagles shouldn't lose. Either way, I am going to say that win or loss for the Eagles, Philadelphia will be burning Sunday night. And I am seriously, I'm looking for a place to make this bet, because I seriously think there's going to be at least 3 injuries from people climbing on light poles after the game. And I can't find a place to put a bet on that, but I really want to, because it's going to happen.
I'm sure there's somewhere, if there's a back alley somewhere, you could find some Eagles fan that's like, nah, we'll be safe.
Nah. Well, the New Orleans police already came out and have been begging Eagles fans not to climb their light poles. And it's like, that's not going to stop them.
Yeah. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting game. Obviously I'll watch it. And again, I like this story of Saquon and everything that happened to him out of New York. He wanted to stay. They let him go. He goes to a team and just absolutely outshines everybody real quickly outshines everybody, and is just having a hell of a year. And I appreciate that. I think the Eagles as a franchise are good. So we're gonna keep that up.
Yeah. You know what else is good? I'll tell you what else is good. Breckenridge Distillery, 5280.
Just getting ready.
This stuff, you know exactly how I flow into these things, guys. Man, this is great. Breckenridge Distillery, guys. Broncos blend with the blue bottle, the orange bottle. Great stuff from these guys. We're drinking it on the shows here. And then the blue bottle, I think, is from 𝗕𝗿𝗵𝘁 McCaffrey. The orange bottle is from Gradishar this year. So they get ex-Broncos players involved to really help develop those flavors. If you're not a whiskey person, don't worry. They got their Broncos Blizzard vodka as well. So Breckenridge Distillery, guys, if you're in Colorado, go buy yourself a bottle. Check it out. It's delicious stuff. Okay, got some comments here that we want to go through really quickly. I did not watch the
I didn't either.
Hearing this does not surprise me that Russell Wilson sacks in flag football.
Yeah. How do you take a sack in flag football? Not just one, but two. Russell Wilson took 2 sacks in the Pro Bowl and didn't even get in the Pro Bowl. I didn't even get in the Pro Bowl. Must have been in by name by playing.
Exactly. Let's see. He also says, why even watch the Super Bowl? Because that's a game within 3 points going in the fourth quarter. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, there's so much scrutiny around the reffing situation, and we could spend a whole thing talking about it and ranting about it. I will say the only thing I want to say about it is it's interesting to see the reffing organization come out in all the media like strongly defending themselves. Like I haven't seen that from NHL refs, NBA refs, MLB, umpires or anything. They're just like really going out there like, this is preposterous. How dare you do, like, we're not all against, these other teams. And it's like, why do you care that much? Like if it's not the case.
Yeah. I mean, they care because they're under a lot of scrutiny right now, and not for nothing, even like things like the Travis Kelce taunt of Damar Hamlin that ended up getting a retaliation penalty. They came out and they fined Travis Kelce. And afterwards they were like, hey, look, we got it. Like we probably should have given it to him. But we all know refs don't see the first, they see the second. That's just across the board, no matter what level you play. And stupid on Buffalo for reacting. But I also hats off to Buffalo. You should react that way. You should be able to defend your guy. Exactly. I had a lot of respect for them. And Travis Kelce should have gotten the penalty on that for sure. But they came out and they fined him. They said, look, that one was wrong. And luckily they didn't get the 2-point conversion, which is, even better. But yeah, the whole refs thing. I think I saw a joke on there about they're talking about taking away all 22 from the fans so that we can't go on there and screenshot like obvious first down missed calls. Like, but I think it's funny and it's a hard job. I mean, it's really easy to watch replay over replay, but they only get one shot at it. They get one look. And then obviously New York gets its say, and I'm not going to say anything about the New York reffing because that's also another issue, but I will say it's hard to be on the field and see those athletes going that fast, and we're trying to spot the ball exactly where it was in live time. It's difficult, and I got to give them a little bit of credit there.
For sure. Well, enough about that topic for now, guys. Just so you know, on these Tuesday night shows during the off season, we're only going to be talking for about 30 minutes, just so that we don't run out of content and things to talk about, but so that we can really spend some time deep, taking a specific deep dive into current Broncos news, Broncos players, position groups. So make sure you join us all throughout the offseason. We'll be keeping up these Tuesday shows as we go through and, kind of ramp up for the free agency and the draft and all that stuff. And that's going to be here before you know it. But for tonight, Jared and I are going to do some talking about some of the coaching changes that have been happening within Broncos country. And, instead of breaking down the coaches that have left right off the bat, Jared, I want to talk to you about the one move that didn't happen that we were kind of expecting very well could have happened. And that is Vance Joseph taking a head coaching job somewhere else. Now, he did interview a couple times with some teams, but ultimately he didn't get the position offered, and he's still staying here in Denver. So what is your take on that? And what are you looking forward to when it comes to Vance Joseph staying with the Broncos?
Yeah, not just that, and I got to pull up his name real quick because I think it's important to mention. But our defensive back coordinator, our defensive back specialist too, love it, Brad. Our defensive back specialist also was in the running for taking a defensive coordinator job somewhere. Just what he's done with with Riley Moss, with obviously having the best corner in the game on the team. He was looked at for defense coordinator, and he decided actually early on in the coaching searches that he was going to stay with Denver because he knew Vance Joseph was staying. And I think that really just solidifies our defense and that consistency. And I think you're going to hear me say it over the course of this next, 20 minutes that we do this, but the consistency of coaches is something that we haven't had in a while. And I think it's something that in order to build a program, you have to have that consistency. Having a couple guys like we have this year kind of come and go and different things, and having Sean Payton be able to release guys as opposed to losing big guys over time, or, firing offensive coordinators, having the same, offensive coordinator and Sean Payton and same defensive coordinator really kind of solidifies what we're doing. And it helps the players year in and year out understand what they're supposed to be doing and where they're supposed to be. And it just helps us become a better team and being consistent, really, being able to find out what our mistakes are and correct them. Hey, what do you do on this play? Did you make a mistake on this play? Don't do it again. And then you have a new offensive coordinator, next year that says, no, I want you to do these things. And it just becomes confusing over time. So I'm happy, A, that Vance Joseph is staying, and B, as far as our core solid coordinators go, including the defensive back coach, we're staying solid.
Yeah. Jim Leonard there, I think another big thing to keep in mind when it comes to him being a secondary coach and deciding to stay, he has a very good track record. You look at what he's done with just the Broncos alone, and I really believe that Vance Joseph is going to get another crack at being a head coach very soon. I think we're lucky this year to keep him. There weren't many head coaching positions available really this offseason, which is weird. There's usually, a fair amount of movement, but there just weren't that many to begin with. I'm not even going to include Dallas's because nobody wanted to go to Dallas, and the way they did things down there was kind of weird. I think Jacksonville too was a very interesting situation, but this is a guy that you look at and he stays with the Broncos, and we assume Vance Joseph leaves in a year or two to go take a head coaching position, assuming the defense still stays as strong as it has been and he looks as good being a defensive coordinator that he does. Jim Leonard could be somebody that we promote from within to take over that role and continue that continuity that is really incredibly valuable for a young team. Even 2 or 3 years down the line, man, we're still going to be a fairly young team, especially if we keep building through the draft. So having that continuity in place and having a plan for the future is really big right now.
Yeah, and the other thing too, with especially the coordinators, I'm gonna start tall and then go down to the bottom, go down to more of the assistant coaches. But keeping coordinators in there also helps with drafting. Again, if you're going to draft within, you need to have your core. What is your plan? We can't go from a spread to a run to a power to a zone to a lead type blocking. You can't kind of bounce around there and then get players specifically for that position when 2 years later you're going to completely change the positions and what the expectation is. So again, I like it, and I think that's exactly where we're going. I do want to bring up though some of the people that we lost. Let's start with the people that not lost. You want to start with people that we lost organically or lost because we got rid of them? Where do you want to go?
Let's start organically.
Organically. Okay, so guys that we lost organically. So surprisingly, our tight end coach ends up getting hired as the offensive coordinator. John Morton. John Morton ended up getting offensive coordinator, and Detroit's offensive coordinator. Nope, that's wrong. I don't know where John Morton went, but I know Doyle, the tight ends coach, ended up taking offensive coordinator job with Detroit. Good for him, becoming young coach. Weird because that was probably the one position that was probably under most scrutiny on our offense all year. But obviously they see something in him as far as his ability to see the game, and going to Detroit with the offense that they have over there. Hopefully he'd be successful over there. So that was a big piece that we lost. And then let's see, Aaron Glenn takes Chris Banjo, who was our special teams assistant, which, our special teams had a turnaround this year, but not big enough. And we'll get to that in a minute. And having him go and be the special teams coordinator for the Jets. So he also ends up leaving. I don't know if that's as much of a hit. Again, he's an assistant special teams coordinator. He probably would have been promoted from within, but he goes and takes a bigger, better job. Good luck to him over there. And those are kind of the big pieces there. Passing game coordinator John Morton left, and that's about it.
Yeah. Special teams is the interesting one. So I can't remember who left in the middle of our season due to health concerns. Was it the actual coordinator? I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he left, and then some of these changes, you got to wonder, was it a time for them to go kind of a thing? I mean, you look back at some of the special teams mistakes we made during the season, and there weren't many, but they were really crucial. The one that comes to mind is
people will always remember the blocked field goal, right? Yep. And then the consistency of seeing that same guy get blown up for multiple times, just near misses and not correcting it. And I think that's where the special teams kind of came under a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah. And that's the thing for me. Like if it was just that isolated incident, I could say like, okay, look, that was just the guy made a mistake, whatever. But when we went back and looked, And all these videos were coming out of that being a problem on field goal kicks, especially throughout the whole season up until that point. You got to wonder, like, how did we not get any other kicks blocked before that? And it's kind of like, well, it happened at the worst possible time for us, but that had clearly been a problem for a long time. And you got to wonder, like, well, where's the coaching in that? Like, they're just like, it didn't get blocked. It's fine. Didn't get blocked. It's fine. Right. Like, that's not the right mentality that we want to have from the coaching staff.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big frustrating point. And again, going back to my all 22 comment earlier, everybody goes back and looks at every field goal that we've done since the beginning of the season, and seeing that and being able to call it out was a little rough for them. And they need to make some adjustments. They made the adjustments apparently, and it could have been a planned thing where his entire job was just to get in the way and not to block forward because of where his footing was. But whatever the case is, I don't know why they made the adjustments in the second half of the season, which after that blocked field goal, obviously they had to. But yeah, so with that being said, on special teams, not only did he get promoted, I was wrong, by the way. Doyle goes to Chicago. So the tight end coach for us is now the offensive coordinator for the young quarterback in Chicago. John Morton did end up going to Detroit to be and now John Morton was our passing game coordinator. So when we talk about James, the OC, our true OC was John Morton, really. He's gone. We'll see what happens in this offseason. Let me see. I guess the offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi. So yeah, Joe Lombardi has a lot of experience. Maybe giving him a little bit of play, and he may have. We don't know. He may have given him a little bit of leeway in that. Those are things that we may not see, and it's probably good that we don't. On what plays Joe Lombardi's calling versus what plays Sean Payton's calling, and I'm sure they're talking about it before the game and all the stuff. But back to special teams. So obviously, our assistant special teams coordinator takes special teams coordinator job with New York, and Sean Payton dismissed our special teams coordinator Ben 𝗕𝗿cie, I think his name is. Yeah. So he releases him. He says, "Hey man, we're gonna go look for somebody else. We need a different special teams coordinator in here." And I don't know if that has anything to do with Kansas City stuff. I don't know if it has anything to do with whatever the case may be. He let him go.
Chargers game.
We're looking for new special teams coordinator, and seeing where that brings us. Right now, we have no special teams coaches. Both our special teams guys are gone. Ooh. So those are the two things that we're going to be looking for in the offseason as we go forward. And we'll be telling you here on Tuesday night once that does happen. Be sure to make sure you follow us and let us know. But yeah, I think that's a big piece there. If you're talking about the game being three pieces, offense, defense, and special teams, we have the special teams players very clearly. Marvin Mims had a stellar year, a Pro Bowl year as a kick returner. Our punter was, pinning him back as much as he possibly could. Can't go without mentioning from Brony being the best long snapper. So we have the players there, and we have this talent, and I think he's just going out there to see what kind of coaches we can get to take that next leap. So that's the one position group, I guess, that's not going to have the consistency that we've been talking about with the offense and defense.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. You really, a lot of people spend a lot of time really talking about those coordinator positions, right? Offensive, defensive, head coaching talks. And there's not a lot of thought behind who these assistants are, who's in charge of special teams, and, what that looks like. But, it's just, when you have a piece leave, like, okay, that's not a big problem. But when you have something like all of special teams is just gone, it makes you go like, wow, what is it? It really makes you wonder, like, what is this going to look like next year? It could be something where there's maybe some growing pains early on, maybe the experience of whoever we get comes into play. I don't know what their plan is there, but special teams is one of those things that's very often overlooked, and in those close games, it could really make or break you. And we saw it in two games this year, Kansas City and then the second Chargers game right before halftime there. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen.
The one thing I will say about special teams, because I mentioned it on offense and defense, so I got to mention is you don't have so much turnover on special teams other than your kicker, punter, long snapper, and kick returner. You really don't have much different. Like, the guys that are back there are going to be your second string guys, most of your second string defensive guys, some offensive guys, right? It's all your second stringers. So the scheme doesn't really play into effect because those people are moving around and getting swapped in and out all the time. So I'm not too worried about the special teams coordinator, although I'm super interested to see who we hire. not as worried as I would be for a new offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, especially with the way all of us ended this season, where we kind of go, hey, we had a pretty good year. Ultimately, we did much better than we thought we would. And I think coaching for the first time in the 8-9 years that we've been doing this, going into our 10th year, we don't have a situation where we're like, fire that guy, he's awful, right? Whether it be an offensive coordinator or head coach or defense coordinator. So it's nice to have, and the fact that they didn't go anywhere and that they were being looked at by other people really makes a big difference. So, and so the last one I'll mention, and this is going to hurt me as an inside linebacker guy, but inside linebacker was a position that we talk about needing some help in, people either in the draft or in free agency if we need it. Coach Payton did let inside linebacker coach Greg 𝗕𝗿cie go as well. So he's looking for a new inside linebacking coach as well. He obviously didn't see the progression or the growth of the inside linebacker position over the course of the year. And he says, time to move on, time to find our new guy at that position. So ultimately we only let two coaches go, and special teams was a little bit of a surprise. Inside linebacker coach, maybe not. I'm probably not as surprised at that let go in that position group. And again, Vance Joseph had a piece to that because that's his defense. So Vance Joseph probably said, hey man, our inside linebackers did not grow the way we wanted them to. They did not progress the way we wanted them to. And it's time to get somebody new in there. And as long as it's the same defensive core, the same defensive scheme, same play calling, then getting a guy that's only there for the development of the players, which is your position group coaches, it's time to get someone new.
Yeah. A last question I want to bring up before we wrap up the show here, man. We're getting close to free agency, and in terms of at least really starting to think about it. What is your feeling in terms of how aggressive the Broncos could be, or maybe not? Like, we do have more money when it comes to cap space, but we still have a big chunk of it in dead cap money going to Russell Wilson again this year. So, there kind of been some, a lot of rumors, the back and forth, but, if you were in charge, or just what are you feeling right now? Where do you see this going for March?
I don't see Sean Payton making big splash moves. That if you're expecting your big trades to get a big top player, I just wouldn't expect it this year. I think with the year that we had when this was supposed to be a reset year, right? A new quarterback, new coaches, new everything across the board. It was supposed to be a reset year, and we did what we completely exceeded expectations there, knowing that we could do it from the draft. Unless there's a guy that Sean Payton knows is a guy that can seamlessly fit into either system, I just don't see it. And I'm looking at these. I mean, there's some big names on this free agency list, man. Like guys that have been in the year for a while, from Keenan Allen, who didn't have he had a good start to the season, didn't finish off real strong with Chicago. Everybody's looking for a new wide receiver because they think that's a weaker group, which I can kind of understand. Do we want to go after a T. Higgins? Do we want to go after a Brandon Cooks? But remember, if we're going to sign a guy like that, we got to pay out the money. And those are the big time guys. Now there's other big ones too. Khalil Mack is a free agent this year. Hassan Reddick with the Jets possibly wanting to move on, outside linebacker. So there's some pieces here, but as far as where we need to fill, I think tight end, inside linebacker, and possibly interior defensive line, there's not a lot of guys in here that are going to be that guy. If we want to boost up the offensive line, which I don't think was a big issue, there's a couple of guys, Cam Robinson, Brandon Sharif, both on that list. I see Cam Robinson re-signing with Minnesota for a friendly deal, but DeMarcus Lawrence from Dallas, again, 11-year guy, been in the league for a long time. Are we trying to build youth, or are we trying to win now? And I don't think we're still not in that win now mentality. So I just don't see us going out for some of these big guys.
Which, let me say, I'm glad we're not in a win now mode, because for so many years following the Super Bowl, we stayed in that win now mode. And you could tell that the moves we were making were based off of that thought process. The whole, we're a quarterback away, or, we just need one or two big names and we'll be right there in the mix of everything and have a deep playoff push, or maybe even a Super Bowl. And that just so was not the case. We knew it, right? And we just kept dumping money into all these guys that were either injury prone, came in, they were not a good fit, and we were just going after them for talent alone. I'm totally fine with not having a very productive free agency period this year, storing some of that money so that we can develop the team that we have already. And, we're going to have to watch to see, do we let Courtland Sutton go? Do we let Javonte Freeman or Javonte Williams go? What is that going to look like? Look, there's not a lot of big names in free agency when it comes to running backs. So do we do something in the draft for that? Right. So all I'm saying, guys, as we wrap up here, and we'll have some closing thoughts, so stick around, but there's going to be a very interesting offseason, and it may not be interesting in the sense that it's going to be exciting with a bunch of breaking news, right? But it's going to be interesting because we're seeing this team develop organically and laying the groundwork for what this team's going to look like in 5+ years from now. So I'm okay with not rushing to any decisions and making any rash decisions to try to just get us, to the next level. Like, let's get these young guys some more experience and see what we can do while saving some money at the same time.
Yeah, for me, for this offseason, I think specifically in the free agency period, I'm looking at interior defensive line. I think that's my bigger concern in this offseason, not only because obviously it struggled a little bit over the season as we ran up against good run teams, but also the fact that DJ Jones is also an unrestricted free agent. We haven't re-signed him yet. So I'm interested to see if we end up re-signing DJ Jones. If we don't, that's a huge gap. I mean, he was basically one of the few people in that interior defensive line we could trust. And if we lose him, what are we going to do? Do we go out in the free agency and try to get somebody else? Do we try to draft somebody in the first round? Like, there's a lot of pieces there. Obviously, I'm a big Javonte Williams. If you've been following the show for a while, I'm a big Javonte Williams fan. I'd like for him to stick around. He might be able to find a good deal somewhere else, and that's good for him. But there's a lot of people that don't like Javonte right now based on the stats for this year. Don't think it was his fault fully still, but we'll see what happens with the running back room. But again, interior defensive line is what I'm looking for this offseason. And I'm excited to continue the show during the offseason as well. For the first time in a few years, I think we haven't done this in at least 4 years. So I'm excited to keep this conversation going through the offseason. Again, as it's not big splash news, but we can still talk about it.
Yeah. It's really, again, watching the team develop during the offseason. People, remind me when they see the Broncos stuff on my car, they're like, it's not football season, right? I'm like, dude, it's always football season, right? It's just a different type of football season. There's tons of stuff to follow and tons of stuff to talk about. So keep coming back here, guys. Every Tuesday night, we will be talking about Broncos stuff, and we'll be drinking some Breckenridge Distillery Broncos blend with you guys as well. So once again, if you're in Colorado, or you're close enough to drive to Colorado or something, or you're flying in and you want to stop by as you're visiting someone here, go grab a bottle of this, guys. Either the blue bottle, or orange bottles can be delicious. Interested to see what kind of theme they come up with next year. The year before that, they were doing the Champions blend, but so they keep it interesting. They keep it fresh every year. So make sure you grab a bottle and check it out. Okay. Gary says, I bet you we get Russell Wilson. And the answer is no. We're already paying him to not play for us. So Jared, let's do some closing thoughts and wrap it up, man. Over to you first, bud.
No, I'm excited for this offseason. Again, coming off of we got a lot of big hurdles off our back this last year. Making the playoffs for the first time in 9 years, having a quarterback that we don't have to worry about, having an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator sticking around. There's a lot of good things that are going to happen, and it might look slow as far as big splash news. We're probably not making ESPN anytime this offseason. But I'm okay with that for the first time in a while. And I think that I'm excited for this offseason and see what they can do. Get the team back to just grinding. Get them back to grinding, learning their trade, learning what they need to do. And then we push forward. And I think next year there's just an infinite possibilities going forward as we rebuild this team into a Super Bowl contender again.
Yeah. And I think that's sooner than we think. And Scott, your comment right there, spot on. I mean, you rewind this thing only a year. Even less than that, 10 months to where we still didn't have a quarterback. We were waiting for the draft to see what we were going to do. And there was just a lot of, chaos. Even after we drafted Bo Nix, there was a lot of like, yeah, well, we got Bo Nix. Like, that was a terrible pick, blah, 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 right? But now we're sitting here going, we got our guy. The only quarterback talk that's really going to be happening is, are we going to, keep Jarrett Stidham as the backup, or, are we going to go find, like, that's the extent of the quarterback conversation. And to see our team get into the playoffs when nobody at the beginning of the season really expected them to do anything of any significance this year is just fantastic. So I can only imagine what we're going to be saying this time next year, Jared. It's going to be a fun
I know.
ride, man.
It'll be fun. And I'll tell you what, Brad, this is the comment of the day, and I appreciate it. We don't do to Devontae what we did to Jerry. Judy went out and just had a stellar year. We got rid of him because we thought he wasn't worth it. Goes out there and just shows us wrong. And I agree. I think Javonte is one of those guys that you got to give that chance to and rebuild around. The Javonte Bo Nix combo can be deadly if used correctly, and we just got to keep him.
Yep. So we'll see, man. It's going to be interesting. Well, hey, Jared, thank you very much for helping me out tonight. To everyone who's commenting and watching tonight, thank you very much for tuning in. Again, we do the show for you guys, so keep tuning in every Tuesday night and follow us on YouTube and Facebook and all those places so you can see our other videos we do throughout the week. With that being said, man, I got nothing left to say for tonight other than this, as we always do, on a very strong Go Broncos!
Go Broncos!
Take care, guys. We will see y'all soon.
Do what I like, yeah, I do what I like, yeah, I do what I like. Sip and go, sip is right, and I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, cause I know I'm the show. In the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, yeah, they know I'm a pro.